Hey everyone, today I have writer, producer, director of the feature film Crow Valley, Josh Conn, with me to talk about how he put that film together and how he's managed to release the film or have the film picked up and be distributed in multiple territories, including the US, Australia, UK, Canada, and most recently Poland. Josh, how you doing?
I'm good, thanks, Alexi. How are you?
Yeah, good mate. I thought we would wind the clock back quite
Yeah,
a while, actually,
let's do it.
even before we met, because we met quite a way into the journey. Let's go all the way back to when you wrote the script. I'd love to hear about the genesis of the film and why you decided to make this particular film.
Okay, so this all the way back, we'd have to go back to 2017, I think 2017 or 2018, somewhere around then. Um, I had decided to make a movie, and that was before I had a script. So I'd made a bunch of short films. I'd had kind of some work as a script writer, and I was at the point where I just really wanted to take my, I guess, my destiny into my own hands as a filmmaker and make a feature. So with that in mind, I just thought, okay, this is the year I'm going to write a script. I'm going to make a movie. So I started writing, getting up at 5 before work each day and doing a couple of hours. So the script came together in about, it took a long time with the script, about, I think it was about 4 to 6 months of, I did maybe 3 page 1 rewrites. And
Mhm.
it was really when I was writing, like doing some press, you often get asked, oh, what were the influences? But the main influence was what I could actually make. So I was kind of writing this very strategic script that was set in one location that had a cast of 2 people, that was something that I was going to be able to make. But then on top of that, as I wrote, I was trying to make it as entertaining as possible as a story. So I guess that's where the rewrites, because you were so hemmed in with what was possible with such a limited scope,
Mm.
that really the rewrites were about making it interesting and having a thematic basis to it and getting the emotionality in the script and all those types of considerations, and also making sure there was lots of running and stabbing as well. That's always important in a script. So yeah, so that took about 4 to 6 months, and then after that I just got to work. I just started shooting it straight away.
Yeah, nice. And so did you shoot it all in one go or did you stagger production? Like how did you roll it out?
So we rolled it out very slowly. I had a friend who was an actress who had done some short movies, and she was happy to get involved. So it was really me and her and a couple of mates, and it was the Robert Rodriguez, Rebel Without a Crew idea, just to make it and
Yeah.
to start as soon as possible and not muck about. So we did that. We worked on weekends and we shot um, a hell of a lot of stuff that was terrible, a lot of stuff that didn't work once you edited together. It was a massive learning curve because features are so different to shorts in
Yeah.
that you're really needing to sustain interest over this kind of extended period. So there was, yeah, a lot of things to learn, but we kept going. And then eventually, I think kind of early last year, we finally finished shooting it all and had a finished edit.
Yeah, nice. And you know, there are a lot of Aussie horror films that are well known around the world. So did placing the film in that genre, like was that informed by just the restraints, right, that you had in terms of, what you could do with a limited budget? Or were you also thinking about, the commercial potential of the film at that stage?
Both.
Yeah.
So it was definitely a factor with the commercial potential. I knew that horror films were much easier to sell,
Yeah.
and it's probably not a genre that I'm totally familiar with or my thing at all. But I was very pragmatic at that stage, and I thought if I'm going to put all this effort into a first movie, which is a
Mm.
risk anyway, I wasn't sure how it would turn out. At least if there were horror elements in it, you could use that from a kind of a selling point of view just, you know, that there was a market there for it. So that was definitely a part of it. But it probably leans, in the end, it was more of a thriller slash, oh, I can market this as a horror
Yep.
movie genre, if that's a genre. It might be a genre. But yeah, it was more thriller slash horror. But it definitely, I think, helped that was the way we went, because when I finally started working with you and we started going out to sales agents, there was definitely, you could feel as though there was interest in kind of that horror end of the market there,
Yep.
even at that low budget level. And I think also, I'll just add one more thing. I knew that it was going to be super low budget.
Yep.
And that element of horror worked in that space as well, that you could have super low budget horror that people would still watch.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm.
And speaking about the financing, so how did you finance the film up to that edit?
So this is because if only I'd met you a few kind of years earlier, I would have done it properly. I financed it by denying my children a solid meal each night. Kind of, I financed it out of my own pocket. So, but it was so low budget that was manageable. But I think what happened was, by the time I got shooting, that was manageable because our costs were so low. I was directing it all. I was, you know, the main cost was for corn syrup and red food dye. And then beyond that, it was just, we had the camera, so, and it was all digital. So it was just that kind of very ad hoc. But it was once we got to that post-production stage that I really started hitting hurdles. And that's when I talked to you for the first time.
Yeah. Yeah. So how did you find out about me or Exile?
I was aware of, there were other Geelong filmmakers who had worked with you and been really successful in funding their movie. And I'm in Torquay, so I was aware of that and them and what had happened there. And yeah, so I knew that I'd heard your name, so I think I sent you an email or something first, or maybe something I can't even remember now. But eventually, yeah, I just hit that hurdle where I couldn't fudge it anymore. I couldn't fake it or just force my way through. There was kind of a knowledge gap that I just was there and I couldn't jump over. So I needed help.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess you're talking about, you know, sound design, you know, coloring, basically that whole post-production phase that is a whole nother beast.
Yeah, it is. And the sound design in particular, I ended up color grading it myself because I ran out of money. But sound design, I couldn't cut that corner, and that was the major expense of the movie. But it was money well spent, because that's what is the equation that everyone uses, like 80% sound, 20% visuals, or something like that. So that lifted the movie to a whole new level, and that is, you know, a black art that only certain people can do. So that was good, but I needed to raise money for that because the cost of that was quite significant.
Yeah.
And but also, I think why I was really keen on talking to you as well was that post-production, beyond that, the idea of contacting sales agents, contacting distributors, was just a world that I had never had anything to do with. I talked to a couple of people who were kind of not particularly helpful, and one person was a bit really unhelpful. So it was just, I needed someone who could help me bridge that gap.
Yep. And from the point that we started working together, why don't you run us through like how that unfolded? So had you finished the edit? I can't remember now. No, you were still editing, I think, because
I was still editing.
The first thing we did was give you some feedback on the edit.
Yeah.
So do you want to run us through, kind of, you know, yes, we start working together. What's the process like from there in terms of, you know, working out how much money you need, working out how you're going to spend it, and then getting through post-production and completing the film?
Yeah, that's where it really started to happen. So you did look at the edit and you had some really good advice there. And then we talked a lot about that post-production phase and how strategies to find money to complete that. Because I think at that stage too, I'd completely just emptied the coffers and was out of money. So we raised a little bit of money to get it through post-production. You helped with that. And then we started that process around distributors and sales agents. So, and I started doing some of your course, and I think I read through everything, and it was really helpful. But I'd realised that I think I'd come in at the point kind of towards the end of the course where there's all this other stuff I should have done, which I didn't do, and then there was this post-production phase. So yeah, that was really good. I think what was really good when I finally started talking to you, and it really helped make the penny drop, and what made the process easy was, I think your approach really benefited me in that you're very pragmatic, you're very straightforward and task oriented, if that makes sense, which really worked for me. It's like, okay, this is the situation. It wasn't like, oh, you're in the movie business, isn't it great? Isn't it exciting? It's like, nah, here's your issue, here's your problem. Let's start working at it from this angle. And that approach, just having a bunch of tasks and jobs to do, really helped me just, I guess, that whole idea of just boots on the ground, getting work done, know you're working towards something, was a really good approach that I really appreciated. So that was the big benefit that I immediately got, and the boost that I had from that period.
Yeah, and those things, you know, like contacting sales agents, contacting distributors, raising private equity, they sound like, you know, if you haven't done it before, it's like, A, it's so scary, B, you don't know where to start. But having something laid out step by step, even though, you know, you're a creative filmmaker, right? You're a director, you're a writer, you acted in the film. But once you had that laid out and broken down, did you find that that was easy then to just go through, you know, okay, step one's is, step two's is, step three's is?
Yeah, it was. I will say that spreadsheets still scare me to the bone. They scare me. But it was really good. And that step-by-step approach was fantastic, actually, because like there's just what you delivered from a knowledge base. I've talked to other people about this, and when I'm talking about you, is there's stuff that you could figure out yourself, but it would literally take you, 5 years of hit and miss and issues, and make that mistake and learn from that mistake. And at that stage, I just didn't really have the time to go through that process. And it was almost like a fast forward button. It was like, okay, this is the way it works. This is how you can approach it. And also it was a combination of that, and also the very practical approach to it. Like, this is what you need to do now. Send emails to these people, that type of thing. That was massive.
Yeah, and how did you feel reaching out to complete strangers in terms of like sales agents and distributors?
I didn't mind it, because by that stage, another not a learning curve, but an approach that I think you have, which is really good, is it's kind of the shrug it off thing, as in it's a numbers game in a way, and more people are going to say no than yes. And it's a business. It's a bloody business at the end of the day. It's a hardcore business. So you just got to put your head down and crack away at it, and keep, email again. And that was the thing that probably seeing that persistence as an approach, as opposed to kind of a mindset. Does that make sense? So it's like, it's not just, let's keep going, and it's this is the job. Persistence is the job. You email 3 times at least. You follow up with the call. That's the way the process works. So seeing it in those terms was really helpful, rather than being kind of like a shy director going, oh, I guess my movie's okay, maybe I should pull them back. So that was a really helpful approach.
Yeah, I think part of it as well is also realizing that, you're the one that has the asset. Like, you're the one that has something to sell, and these people are in the business of selling what you own. So, you're not asking any favors. This is, you have something to sell, like, get it in front of them.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, that's so true. And also one thing that kind of I learned was that you don't need heaps of people to say yes, but if you have one person say yes, that's enough. That'll get you going to the next level. So yeah, it was a really great learning experience.
Yeah, cool. And and you did raise some private investment as well, I think, small amount of private.
A small amount of private, and we did a kind of a crowdfunding thing as well, and that was enough. So it was
Yeah,
interesting because out of all the tasks, and probably the hardest that I've found, even at that stage, I'm yet to try and fund a movie properly, um, is that going to people to invest in your movie.
yeah,
And it was a good point to kind of dip the toe in and see
yeah,
what it felt like. So I've got writing, as we discussed earlier, I'm writing this new project, so that'll be something that'll be, really
yeah,
kind of trying to get my brain around in the next, I guess, 6 months. But yeah, that was a good kind of starting point. Someone I knew, talked a lot to him about the project and just those types of conversations. But that's probably still something I've got a lot to learn about.
yeah. Oh, I mean, it's a constant learning process, I think, with
Mm.
raising private. And yeah, you do it the first time and you get rid of those nerves, but they're still there every time. I think you go out and try and raise private, like they don't leave you. It gets a little bit easier, but oh mate, still pretty nerve wracking. Um, and so run us through. So you do the sales agent outreach and you attach a sales agent. Right, so
Yes.
they're going to take on the worldwide rights to the film outside of Australia.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, what was that process like negotiating with a sales agent for the first time, even deciding that you would go with them, and what's it been like, yeah, working with them since?
So we had, I think, it was an interesting process just from going out to sales agents, because it was like you had nibbles, but then people would maybe go, oh, it's not right for us right now. And then the sales agent we went with, they were very proactive and positive, and kind of wanting to do something straight away.
Yeah,
And I think we kind of, during the process, we explored some other options at the time. There were other people who were slightly interested. So, and then eventually we circled back to them. And that's been a good process. They were good to work with. I know there's been lots of, people have lots of kind of nightmare stories about sales agents, but they've been really good to deal with.
awesome.
They managed to secure the deal for the US, Canada, and the UK. So that was massive as
Yeah,
far as getting the movie out there. So, and yet again, that's a world that I know nothing about, as in that process that they go through.
yeah,
So it was good to secure that, and it was, yeah. I mean, even then, it was still a learning curve, but it didn't seem as unwieldy or undoable. That's a terrible word. Uh, Once you're in it and doing it, it was, yeah. It's as you said before, you're the one, and that makes a lot of sense. You're the one with the assets, so
yeah,
you're kind of dealing with it on those terms.
yeah, yeah, awesome. And in Australia, I think you had a festival premiere at the end of last year.
We did, which was so lucky.
I
Well,
know.
from a COVID point of view,
In a cinema.
in a cinema. We had a full house cinema in December, and I think it was just that break just before Omicron hit.
Yeah, that's right.
We just snuck it in, and it was a massive night. It was so much fun. It was we had a full house, and
That's
I
awesome.
think the big part was getting back to the sound design. Was it just in a cinema? It was so loud. I couldn't believe how loud it was, and it sounded huge and massive and all those things. And
Yeah,
the really gratifying thing was that you're sitting in a cinema and you're hearing people laugh at things that you hope they laugh at. And I think you get a sense of people engaging with it.
yeah.
You kind of can just feel the energy of the crowd, and the energy was good. It was like people were into it, and there were and all those types of things. So it was really satisfying from that point of view. It was a great night, and it was a really good platform too, because they actually, Monster Fest organised quite a bit of media, so that was
Cool.
helpful in getting the name of the movie out there just a little bit more, and a kind of a good launching pad for our release in Australia on VOD, which is coming up pretty soon.
Yeah, awesome. And so I guess in terms of where the film's at now, you know, you'll have the Aussie release, sales agent will keep trying to sell it, and for you, I guess, yeah, what's next? I mean, you told me, but you don't have to give us the full pitch. But you know, you're working on something else. You know,
Yeah,
how far along are you?
I did. So we were talking before, weren't we, earlier about it? I've had a few ideas that didn't really get going. You know, you kind of do the first act and tear it up and pull your hair out and that type of thing. So I had about three of those, three ideas that I did.
Yeah.
I wrote a first act for, and even I think I have had about 5 ideas that I've kind of carted up and planned.
Yeah.
But I've finally hit a really, I don't know, just I've got this character, and he's a crazy guy, and he's a terrible, terrible person. And yeah, I'm just really loving writing him, which has got to be a good sign. And the story it's just kind of coming, it's just happening. So I remember even when I was writing Crow Valley, I think I was very focused on structure and writing with so many constraints. So it was quite tricky sometimes. And there were scenes, I think bridging scenes that I put in that I probably shouldn't have put in, that didn't work. And this is all that learning curve, that filmmaking learning curve. Whereas this one, I feel as though I've got kind of a bit better antenna for scenes that are just making up the numbers, as opposed to, you know, really good dramatic scenes that have conflict and have all the things that they need to have. So it's fun. I'm really enjoying writing this script and this terrible person. He's terrible.
That's the best.
So yeah, that's pretty exciting actually. It's the most excited I've been. Well, you know, a lot of things excite me, but yeah, it's with a project since I've been Crow Valley. It's like, I'm excited about it. That's good.
Yeah, and it's funny that, right? Like, I feel until an idea is really turning you on, it's hard to work it. It's hard to develop it. It's hard to finance it. I mean, you'd be lucky if you got it into production if you're not really turned on by the project. That's certainly what I've found with all the films.
And I think it's interesting. I get to the point, and it was the same thing with Crow Valley, where this sounds a bit airy-fairy, but the images you're having in your head as you write it, you get this point where you really want to see them happen. You really want to see them be on a screen and come to life and be in a movie. Once I get to that point, it's like, well, there's no turning back now. It's all
gotta make
in.
it happen.
Yeah. So that's where I'm at. It's good.
Yeah, nice. And what about, how would you feel now, having been through the process with Crow Valley in terms of, you know, attaching sales agents, distributors, going through that, dipping your toe in with private equity, even just having produced a feature from start to finish? How, if at all, is that informing your decision to, you know, which project to work on, or maybe the writing process now? Yeah, what are some key takeaways you've had from that whole experience that you're taking into the next one?
I think the key takeaway is perhaps the quality of the material, which is vital. The quality of the production as you shoot is vital, and the quality of the acting is absolutely vital. So, you know, people talk about that cumulative nature of film, and that as you make a movie, you're crawling across a sheet of glass, but it turns into concrete behind you, and that's kind of such a good analogy. But so it's about getting those building blocks right, and I think that, going back to the script that I'm writing at the moment, why I'm excited about it is it feels like there's really solid building blocks there, and even though it's a genre that may not be as marketable as perhaps a horror movie or something like that, I feel as though if you can up the quality, then you doors open. And it's really, there was another quote I heard that was really good too, that, you know, everyone wants to find a good movie. They don't care who makes it. They don't care what you are. They just want to watch good movies. So and movies are so hard to make. So if you've got something that you feel can be of some type of quality, then that's a great starting point. And that's like down to the nuts and bolts of story. It's like, is there emotion? Is there drama? Is there comedy? Is it a cinematic? Is it something that can be a cinematic experience? I think that's key. Also, because there's, I think also because you've got that dual, you've got that the very kind of sales agent world, but you've also, I think, from a filmmaking perspective, that case you can get from festivals and that type of thing. I think that's a really important thing as far as building your name as a filmmaker as well. And yet again, like, I think people want to have someone say, oh, well, do this or do that, and you'll get into this festival, or do this or do that, and you'll get a sales agent. But I think at the end of the day, you just got to do something that's good. If you do something that's half decent, then you're halfway there, and it's really hard to do. But, it's so much fun. So yeah, it's a journey. I think also it's just such a great, movies. It's such a fulfilling creative endeavor. They just on that basis alone, they're really a great way to express yourself creatively.
Oh, definitely. I mean, there's nothing more satisfying, I think, than, getting to the end of a shoot, or getting to the completion of the film, or being in a cinema and watching an audience, watch your film. It's so rewarding.
Absolutely, yeah. And having that experience with the festival, and then just that audience reaction. But also, I think another part is the editing process. I really love that part too, because you see it go from a bunch of shots to something that is like a movie, and it's like, ooh, that's exciting.
So, and final question, any advice to any filmmakers out there thinking about, going out and making a micro budget film, just backing themselves and getting out there and just shooting it?
I would say my advice is do it, because even if it's not that great, or you may be, the next best filmmaker in the, you would be the next Spielberg or something, but you will learn. Like, you just can't go wrong. I think, and it's the type of thing, I think, with filmmaking too. You've really got to do it. Like, it's such it's a real, it's not, some people call it a craft, but it's almost like a trade in a way. There's, when you're on set, it feels like you're a plumber or an electrician, or that's part of it too. There's just a lot of skills to learn, and until you start doing it and doing a lot, you're just not going to learn those skills. So write a script, shoot it. It might be awesome, it might be terrible, but you'll be moving forward and, expressing yourself.
Yeah, awesome. And I will ask you one last question. Any advice to anyone out there thinking of working with us at Exile?
Oh, I would say do it straight away. Don't shoot all your movie and then do it. Do it at the start. When you first have an idea, perhaps that's the best time to do it. But working with you guys, I feel as though I've gone from being a guy who was perhaps, off having crazy ideas about movies, to a person who has perhaps some ideas about what it requires to actually produce a movie and do it properly. And those various tasks that will get you to a point where perhaps you might have the opportunity for people to actually see the movie and to make a movie at a decent level of quality too. I think that's a big part of it as well, because that knowledge about production, that knowledge about post-production processes, it has such a huge impact on the quality of a movie. Because, and also, I feel like I'm raving on here, but that idea of funding, one thing I really noticed with Crow Valley, the difference, trying to do it all yourself, you're denying yourself, and with it, doing it on low budget, you're kind of denying yourself access to people who will help you make it a lot better. So if you're doing it all yourself, you're denying yourself access to a color grader who is amazing. You're denying yourself access to an editor who may take your shots and do something amazing with them. So I guess, that would be the thing that you guys do, is is adding that level of professionalism and just a skill base that will help take the product to another level. And getting back, like, there's so much to learn, and until you have mentors and people who are willing to be generous with their knowledge, you're just not going to learn it. And I'll say one more thing. I keep banging on, but
I won't stop you.
the good thing is, and one thing that I really noticed, and I said this earlier, was that the whole there can be hierarchy and people perhaps withholding information because they feel as though it might give them an edge. One thing that you guys did, were so generous about really valuable knowledge, and because it's that knowledge is hugely, it's so valuable as you try and do this stuff, and it's hard to come across. It's hard to come across people who will be honest and generous with what they know, without putting on any and just being straight about and going, yeah, man, this is what you need to do. So that was the big takeaway that I had from working with you guys. It's that generosity of knowledge. It's it was really good.
Awesome, mate. Well, thank you for the time. I'm excited to hear more about the new film when you're ready. I'll be here waiting. But no, thank you. I will post some links to the film, to Crow Valley, in the video. Josh, pleasure as always. We'll be in touch soon, mate.
Thanks, Alexi. Nice talking to you again.